Now, we will begin with the papers today, and quite a number of issues really on our papers this morning, beginning with the Daily Trust as usual. The Daily Trust leads with the story that says electoral bill, governors, lawmakers clash over new clauses. The writer says written consent for consensus sends jitters to governors and others. PDP lawmakers want Buhari to sign bill immediately. Experts differ on presidential assent. Now, if you take a look at below the pictorial, you would see bandits killed 1,192, kidnapped 3,448 in Kaduna in 2021 alone. That's alarming. If you take a look at the riders, it will say El-Rufai urges FG to create theater command in Northwest. And then Northern traditional rulers raise 5-man committee to tackle insecurity. Nigeria among 8 world's top kidnapping hotspots, Emir of Gumi. So that's quite alarming. The pictorial basically shows you Hajia Mariam Ahman of the Coalition of Muslim Women, flanked by Hajia Rahama Musa Bukar and Hajia Maria Sani, briefing participants at the World Hijab Day to mark the annual event in Abuja yesterday. Now, beside that, you see the stories that says Girawa's 15 billion naira rice mill commissioned in Kano. NBC suspends popular FM TV program Idom Mikia. And the next one, Atiku meets Babangida in Mina. So the tradition of meeting the keymakers, quote and unquote, is being kept, and followed through religiously by some politicians. It is after such meetings most times that you hear them when they come out. They now make a declaration to run for the office, of the president. So we wait to see what's going to follow this meeting. The next one at the top there, you would see Nigeria lost 1.6 trillion naira to oil theft in 9 months, and that's according to Elumelu. The next one, Kano asked police to exhume corpse of Almajiri child killed by teachers. And then the next one, FG launches 62 billion naira HIV trust fund. And these are basically the stories on the front page of Daily Trust this morning.
All right, now to reiterate, the lead story on The Guardian newspaper says El-Rufai seeks help as bandits kill 1,192, kidnap 3,348 in Kaduna. 9 persons kidnapped daily in 2021. That's one of the riders. Northwest needs a military theater command to tackle banditry, says governor. And Khan calls for El-Rufai's resignation, says report self-indicting. We also have a story here that says ignore governor's pressure, sign electoral act now. PDP lawmakers urge Buhari, and details of that story can be found on page 2. We also have police rescue 113 teens from illegal rehabilitation home, NAB operators. And we also, right at the bottom, there's a story here that says gunmen kill ex-administrator, abduct over 50 persons in Kaduna and Katsina. And details of that story can be found on page 29. These are the stories on the front page of The Guardian newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Blueprint newspaper. The lead story is same, insecurity. El-Rufai cries out to Buhari, give us Northwest Theater command to tackle terrorists. The writer says 50 kids, 1,142 others killed, 3,348 kidnapped in Kaduna 2021. Insist there's nothing like repentant bandits. Gunmen kidnapped Tinubu's loyalist, 4 others in Ekiti. Other stories there below the pictorial. No more coup, Buhari assures Nigerians. Well, this is in light of the recent happenings across the African continent. The most recent in Burkina Faso, and then just yesterday we're hearing gunshots around the presidential palace in Guinea-Bissau. We await to see what's going to happen. Below that, at the very bottom, you see Olubadan, Coast dares for Balogun as court OK's selection process. You'll also see how we are addressing Apapa gridlock by Sanwo-Olu. Buhari launches 62 billion naira HIV trust fund, and then you would find also World NTD Day. 4 million risk contracting elephantiasis in Zamfara. These are some of the stories on the front page of Blueprint today.
All right, moving on to the Punch newspaper. Right at the top, you see a story there that says 6.6 million Nigerians become MTN shareholders. Telco rakes in 111.75 billion naira. We also have Buhari mandates Gambari Ngige Adamu to resolve ASU crisis, begs lecturers. Oil revenue plunges as Nigeria misses January OPEC quota. And we also have the lead story here that says marketers labor warn as FG pushes refineries repairs to Buhari's successor. And we have writers here that say no subsidy removal until refineries are working under next government, says Silva. And then without repairing refineries, fuel price hike imminent, says marketers, and fault policies. At the bottom there, you'd see a story that says U.S. resumes no interview process for Nigerians seeking visa renewal. We also have kidnap epidemic. Gunmen abduct ex-LG chair, 4 others in Ekiti. And then reps recommend 390 million naira compensation for customs killings in Oyo and Katsina. These are some of the stories that made the front page of the Punch newspaper.
All right, now the business day this morning has about maybe just a few stories, I would say, rather. The lead story says Africa's economic rebound from pandemic lies in trade and investments. That's about the major story there on Business Day this morning. And now let's get perspectives on the stories. We have in the studio Ben Sherman, Director News, Voice of Nigeria, to share with us his perspectives. Good morning and welcome to Daybreak.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, I mean, insecurity has been with us for quite a while now, and the discussions are there. This data released by the Kaduna State government is quite alarming, isn't it? When you look at, over 1,100 kidnappings, about, 3,000, rather 1,000 killing, not kidnapping. Over 3,000 were kidnapped, in the state. The governor is calling for the establishment of theater command there. Is that long overdue? Some would say, Kaduna is like a military zone in itself already. You already have all of these military formations there. So why theater command?
Thank you very much. Why theater command? The specific duty will now be to take the war to these criminals. That is just going to be the brief. Whereas if you say Kaduna State has been the hub of military establishments, NDA, Command and Staff College, many military barracks here and there, even in Zaria, you see, their duties are different. But when you have a theater command, just like you have in Borno, that is specifically for fighting Boko Haram for Northeast. Now, Northwest, therefore, if you have this theater command to fight the terrorists as they've been declared now, that should be the end thing. And El-Rufai is apt in this call. Because if you look at just Kaduna State alone, so what is happening to Zamfara? What's happening in Sokoto, Kano? You look at Niger State, for example. It's a serious thing, and Nigeria is just under siege, and therefore we expect that the military too should adhere to this call. It is apt, it is urgent, it is necessary, and there are places where this could be done. The land is there, and we need to just protect Nigerians, long and short. And when he says yes, there's nothing like repentant bandits. I also support him in this order. How will you kill people, maim, set people, houses are blessed. You kidnap, you collect ransom. You now wake up, I've repented. And people just say, you are now forgiven. Tabula rasa. Your heart is as clean as that of a baby child. No, it shouldn't be. They should be held accountable for their actions. They should, indeed. The law should take its course.
Well, some would say that opening, that window, it gives them the opportunity to lay down their arms. So, if you close that chapter, it means that...
Yes, in this kind of banditry or even terrorism, there were some people that were coerced, they were forced into it. Those people, you understand with them. And of course, even the way they fight their terrorism, you see that, they were not that committed. But again, if truly they were forced into it and they went into it and became full members without looking back, they should just face the full scale of the law. That is just it. We cannot be playing with fire. If we just forgive these people, yes, we are giving room for some other groups to take up arms against the state, against the people. I think we have to be firm. We must be, and we should be.
But how do you know for certain if those people who actually claim to be coerced were actually coerced? Because anybody can just, come out and say, I was coerced, if they know they're going to get milder punishment.
Yeah, you see, how do you know they were coerced? The military has its ways of sifting out who has done what. Let me tell you in brief. There was a time, the days of Buratai as Chief of Army Staff, I was embedded in the military. We went for operations, and at a point we saw a group, S.K. Usman, he was spokesman for the army then. We were going to around Gamborungala, and suddenly we reached an area where you could see too many people, a kind of following few cows, pretending to be cattle rearers. The military used their own kind of techniques to cipher who indeed were terrorists among them. They all were asked questions, where they were coming from and what they were doing and where they were going to. And of course, the real owners came up to say, look, we were hijacked, we were kidnapped. We've been with them each time they needed meat, they select one and kill. So when the military used their own psychologists, they were able to now know, okay, these are the real owners of the cows and these were the kidnappers. So when you say, how will they know? The military is, you don't underrate them at all. They have psychologists, they have the expertise, they have the intelligence, and they can always cipher. And there are times you ask someone a question, psychologically, when you fling your face away from the person asking you a question, psychology of lie telling, you see that they don't face you. You can always get some of these things.
All right. Well, quite interesting stories, really. If you look at what we are dealing with now, the issue about the Electoral Act is also on the table this morning. There's this disagreement that between governors and lawmakers. It has continued, even now that we are waiting assent by the president.
Honestly, the battle between the governors and the lawmakers is a continuing one. Why do I say so? 2019, governors were seeking and they got it. Some got automatic ticket. Nobody should contest against them because they were sitting governors. Lawmakers also said, look, in that case, we also need automatic tickets. We contest with our rivals. Then the lawmakers were hindered. Now, this is time for the lawmakers to also take their own pound of flesh. Let us have direct primaries. People will just go and vote the way they should be, not this indirect thing. Suddenly they said, no, there has to be consensus. And that was canvassed by the governors. You just wake up and say, no, we have agreed that this one is the candidate. Now, the lawmakers have also inserted this clause that there has to be a written agreement where indeed you said candidate A is the consensus candidate. We now want to see it in writing. Who were the people who signed the document to say this was it? And we don't need irregular signatures. So you can see the ding-dong affair still continues. And will the president sign this? Again, we are most likely to see the governors turning the villa, the presidential villa, to be another maker. They go there to meet the president, persuade the governor, cajole him, beg him, don't sign this. This is another, game plan. But again, this is where the president will have to show he is the leader of the party. And of course, if you check this consensus thing, the agreement now cuts across the major political parties. And so we, the voters, are left to see what the next steps will be. Will the president sign this? And that's why PDP is saying, sign it now. Sign it immediately. Will he comply? We wait to see.
Well, whatever it is, there's not much time, isn't it?
Exactly.
And we hope that at the end of the day, we will not be told that it's close to the election, and so the bill could disrupt the coming elections, and so it will not be assented.
Absolutely, for crying out loud, INEC has been saying, look, our elections will be hinged on the release of this, they are releasing of political timetable for elections rather, is hinged on this electoral bill. Because if you now say, you must do your convention between this to that, and suddenly the bill comes out to oppose that, you see there's a crisis. We beg that the politicians should not heat up the political barometer. They shouldn't have to hit the polity. It shouldn't just be it. When people carry the Bible, carry the Quran, and you swear you do justice to all manner of people, irrespective of religion, region, or wherever people come from, we expect that this electoral act should be a way to create the path towards justice, equity, stable polity, and of course, even the rule of law, equality before the law. This electoral act will determine quite a lot, because if you get it right via the political kingdom, many other spheres of life in Nigeria will be correct if we get it politically right.
Sure.
Okay, let's take a look at something from the international scene. Can you share your thoughts on the number of coups happening in some West African countries?
Honestly, it's an aberration. It's abnormal. The military is supposed to be protecting democracy, protecting the citizenry. But what we are seeing, this abnormality, this unusual insertion where you have peaceful environment, is just not it. But again, we also have to look at what they usually claim. The civilians will always say, look, they have failed, a group has failed. That is just not it. The military should not fall prey of that. And that's why Buhari, our president, is saying no to military rule. And the chief of defense staff, at the point last week, was telling a group of journalists, look, as far as they are concerned, they have it better during civilian rule. And so we should see that and obey. And quickly too, if you check, the communist world is penetrating West Africa. Russia, China, see what they are doing in Mali. Surprisingly, France is pulling out, and China, Russia are entering that place.
Yes, but is this not because it doesn't look like democracy is paying off in Africa, really, if you think about it. For most of these coups that take place, what you see, it is usually followed by jubilation by ordinary citizens in the country. An indication that it looks like we are tired of this democracy. Especially if you also consider the fact that a lot of these African countries are being now attacked, by armed men, armed militia all over the place, and they are continually encroaching on the lands, of these people. So it looks like, civilian leaders are becoming, weaker. So maybe the military felt we have to defend our country.
The military are not magicians. It's not as if they come on board, therefore every other thing is now okay. But I tell you that even when you have an issue, those who never do well, of course, they welcome that kind of a setup. And therefore, we must still condemn all of that. There is the need at a point to also be patient. But the political class, when they say, look at what these people claim as the reasons for takeover, we should look at even Boko Haram, the many things they list, the many sins against the political class. No education, no health, no employment, no this, no that, no that. So when the politicians do come on board, at the point of your campaign, your charter of demands from people and what indeed you're covenant with them, you should be able to follow them. Therefore, we are still saying no to military. They should just protect us. They are not trained to be in government at all. Governance is for the civilians, and that's why we have democracy. And when we talk of democracy, there has to be the ground known. You campaign, you present yourself. People must vote you as to be where you should be. Not a kind of imposing yourself using the gun instead of the ballot paper. They're talking of the bullets. We are saying give us the ballot paper, not the bullet.
Okay. Now, I mean, talking about getting the politically correct, in Nigeria is approaching the elections in 2023, and we're already seeing the direction in which the conversation is heading. Someone who is known to be a presidential candidate for as long as I can remember is going to see former head of state, Ibrahim Babangida, who himself was a military head of state and, is said to be responsible for the return of democracy, even though, with a bit of a contention here and there. So what's your opinion or thoughts, about this visit now?
Well, usually there are people you call stakeholders in every nation, in every polity. There are the makers and those who indeed are pillars in society. And because of the teeming supporters they have, their words are almost like a command. When you go, politicians will say, let me hold consultations. Atiku is holding consultations. Tambuwal holding consultations. Many others holding consultations. And with who? You see that they are selecting either past presidents, past, industrialists. And theirs is that because of the group of individuals or the teaming supporters they have, if they have some endorsements from those people, it also follows that they have some kind of popularity. And that's why they say, we have to consult. When my people say, go and contest, who am I to say no? It's not as if, we know the politicians, they want to do it, but they keep on telling us they have to hold consultations when there are people say,
one of the aspirants declared his intention already before going for the consultations. We've seen that, isn't it?
Well, you see, that's the beauty of democracy. Some people will want to be faster than the moment they think, they move on instead of now doing consultations before declaring or throwing their card in the ring, their hat in the ring.
Okay. Let's move on to health. Yes, and the federal government launching 62 billion naira HIV trust fund. What's your take on this? Share your thoughts.
You see, HIV issue has virtually been swept under the carpet as if it doesn't exist. It exists very well. And because of the stigma attached to it those days, people are not really coming out. And see today, when they say corona, people are not shameful when it comes to corona. But because of stigma, HIV is always, people see that, no, if I announce this, I'm positive. Society begins to think differently. For government to now say, look, let's go back as it was, give it a real attention. But I do know that some agencies will always assist in Nigeria. You still see that some people who indeed are supposed to be taking some drugs, the drugs are not readily available. So if government feels they should come on board this way, fine. I remember then Patience Jonathan once called editors and she was saying she had this vision tackling HIV/AIDS. And some of us ask questions, Madam, why don't you ensure that the company making antiretroviral drugs, let them come to Nigeria, establish companies, make these drugs, and you can even export them to some other African countries. But we begin to just continue begging for drugs abroad. They give us money, we just share. People are living fat because of these attacks of HIV and all that. I think it shouldn't be the thing. But if government now says we are going back to it and there is a fund set out to tackle that, it's a good thing. But in terms of oversight function, this is the money. Who is there? Who monitors? People should go and see. And even those who have tested positive and living positively with it, we should, Nigerians should scrutinize and see what is happening. And there is always this saying, fight the virus, not the victim. Today we are still neglecting these people who indeed are working positively, they are living positively, and by the time you profile them, oh, he is positive, he is HIV positive, you begin to make them look guilty. After all, some of them are positive not because of being wayward at all. If you check either blood transfusion, some contacts with some people, some fluid and all that. So how will that be their problems? You have children inheriting from parents. So how is it the fault of the children? Why should we segregate them? If government therefore is intervening, good thing, welcome.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll have to end the discussion here. We appreciate your coming on the program. Very interesting perspectives there.
Yes, indeed.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. We've been speaking with Ben Shema, Director News, Voice of Nigeria, and he's been the one giving us some perspectives to the stories on the front pages of our newspaper.